Really deep look at this, and then Eric, really excited to have you here. Please help me welcome Eric. Right.
So why is nobody taking the comfy chairs?
Because I'll steal that copyright out of your hand now.
I have a newborn. My first meeting started at 7 a.m., so I could just lay down and talk. If that's all right. So this will be a little bit more low energy. Is it okay if I sit here? Like, you guys can, on the video webcam, can see me? All right. Maybe you actually use our products? You can lie.
That's in the restrooms.
If you can use more, that'd be greatly appreciated. We have a big forecast to hit this year, so it's like a pledge drive. Every little bit helps. So I basically do what, or I used to do what you guys do, which was I was on the agency side, and I spent the first 7 years of my career working as a strategic planner in advertising. I started over in London, got to be at Fallon in the mid-90s during their heyday, which I had no intention of being in Minnesota. I was trying to go from London to New York and ended up there. But a wonderful stop in my career. Came to San Francisco to work at Hal Riding on Saturn back in '97. Did a little stint in tattoo brand consulting and wrote this business plan. Like you, I was incredibly frustrated with clients and how stupid they are, and how they could never see the real genius of the work we were trying to present. So I decided to put my mouth where my mouth is and see if I can actually create my own brand. So everything we've done at Method is kind of looking at things through that marketing, advertising, communication. In a lot of ways, the company didn't really start as a business plan. It really started as a concept and a brand plan. And I'm a huge fan of Adam Morgan and his speak on Challenger brand. So this was probably the ultimate Challenger brand case study as far as most entrepreneurs are stupid enough to take on one Goliath. We took on 7 Goliaths. And most of these companies got a 100-year head start on us, so we've got to fight them for incredible small amounts of distribution space. So essentially, we constantly reinforce this to the organization that our only chance of survival is to be radically different to everything they're doing. And we really are not just a David against a Goliath, but David among 7 Goliaths. And to put this in perspective, collectively, I got to change the years because we're in 2011 now and update this. But collectively, the 7 multinationals we compete against have a marketing budget of about $2.7 billion. And to kind of put this in perspective, we did a quick little case study to figure out how many rolls of toilet paper we go through at Method. We figured our competition drinks as much caffeine and therefore goes to the bathroom as much as we do. So we kind of scaled that up, and since most of them make toilet paper, figured they'd get a good deal on it. So they spend collectively about $15 million on toilet paper, and our advertising budget last year was $5.1 million. So we're pretty much royally screwed. But despite this, and this is kind of my credibility slide, it's always great when you can't afford your own research so somebody else does it for you. Procter & Gamble went out to understand of 25,000 global brands who drove the most ROI over a 7-year period. And this study came out in 2008, and we were shocked as anybody else to see the fact that we were number 11 on this list. And this was based on driving past value as well as future value that could be unlocked within the brand. And so I give kind of credit to the fact that these guys are no longer in charge. Such a huge fan of this show, I can't wait for it to come back again. The world really is shifting. That favors the little guy. And what I love about such a common plot at Sterling Cooper here is that it's like an entrepreneur who was coming to them to figure out how to tell their brand in a bigger story, or tell their brand through mass advertising. And of course, they would have like this natural tension of trying to force them to bring their brand down to a very single idea. And we're very fortunate that we got to start this brand in a media era where you can tell a much bigger story. And so the way we think about it, Seth Godin talks about this, the industrial television complex, which was this pretty simple idea that you get distribution, you buy ads to rub people that allow you to get more distribution, to sell more product, to buy more ads. It was a beautiful, simple world that essentially looked like this: command and control marketing. I think we all probably, given the choice, would go back to this world. It was so simple and so fun, which is why we have the 3-martini lunch. The reality is we now live in this world where it's very much participation. And this is kind of my standard presentation I give to marketing audiences. So you guys live this, so I apologize if I'm kind of speaking in 101 speak here. But the way we kind of break it down, and it's really, really simple, is that most companies spend a lot of time here rethinking their marketing strategy in this shift, and probably most of your clients are struggling with this, and you're trying to help them through it. But if you think about it, going back to that kind of madman moment, our brands over the last 50 years have been shaped to work in a mass media environment. So I always tell companies, if you're rethinking your marketing strategy, well, you got to rethink your organizational strategy, because we've designed our organizations to work within this marketing strategy of mass media. But you actually have to go all the way back to rethink your brand theory. And so for us, this is what we're going to walk you guys through. Methods very much built from a belief, brand from the inside out. And then we think about marketing as nothing more than creating a conversation. Please stop me along the way for questions. So the first piece of this is this idea of building from a belief. And as you mentioned, Method very much kind of came from this point of view. So this is Adam and I in front of our original flat where we started Method. One of our dirty little secrets is we actually started this company in a very dirty flat. We had 5 roommates. The least unexpected place for a cleaning revolution to be born. And I came from an advertising design background, as I mentioned. Adam came from a chemical engineer working on climate change at the Carnegie Institute. So it's kind of our peanut butter and chocolate moment of putting together our 2 kind of points of view into this category. And the first question everybody's always asks us is, why cleaning? And I'm still 10 years later not sure. Other than it was a really great opportunity. And I started just looking, I had this theory of, don't start a business from an idea you fall in love with, start a business from finding a white space. And so I was just looking at different industries, trying to find one that I felt had an opportunity to do something different. And I was doing a project for Colgate, so I was spending a lot of time in the grocery store, and I just started looking at the space because it was so big, but yet everything felt so similar. And so the exercise became find the cultural shift. And we were very fortunate to find 2, and it still kind of holds up the pillars of the company today. So the first shift was this idea of lifestyling with the home. This is back in '99, so people really started to rethink their involvement with the home and recognizing it as an expression of themselves. You saw IKEA arriving in America, Home and Garden Television, really these shelter magazines were popping up. But yet nobody was thinking about cleaning as an accessory to the home. It was this ugly thing that was about solving problems underneath the sink, out of sight, out of mind. So the first kind of aha moment was, well, what if you could design it beautiful enough to leave it on the counter, therefore it's more convenient to use, make shopping for it more like personal care or cosmetics, and try to bring some of that essentially lifestyle to it. And then the second shift that we recognized, and this was an easy one to recognize living in San Francisco, which was, okay, we're trying to eat organic, but yet we use pesticides to clean our kitchen, which is the form of anti-fat cleaners. And why do we use poison to clean? Why do we pollute? Or why do we pollute when we clean? Why do we use poison to make our homes healthier? And so we saw the second opportunity, which was to bring a healthier approach to the category. But this is problematic because we're trying to write a business plan explaining how we're going to take on Procter & Gamble and Unilever and Clorox, et cetera. And we're going to do it in a space that nationally was valued at only $30 million. Back in 2001, cleaning was a niche. And the people suffer a little, even the pack suffering. And it was that badge of honor of you were willing to buy it to kind of do your Call of Duty for the environment. And so green also really did clean. And so we had to kind of reposition this. And so the way we thought about it was, if we're going to create something that's great for the environment, let's actually not tell that story because it's such a small minority who will make that trade-off. We have to make it relevant to the masses. And so we just brought the story in much closer to the selfish personal motivations of your home environment. So our whole philosophy was, don't buy Method because it's good for the environment, buy Method because it's good for your home environment. And not to be forgotten too, that consumers buy what's scarce in a category. And I would argue there's nothing more scarce than fun when it comes to cleaning. So it's a very strategically placed cactus. So we felt one of the biggest things we could do was just bring an element of fun to the world of cleaning. And so with that, our elevator pitch became a Veda for the home. And our big idea was, let's take a personal care approach to home care. Let's bring the beauty, the fragrance, the fun of personal care, and combine that also with something that's safe enough that you can actually touch your skin as you clean naked. And so this ultimately became our big pitch. So I'll just kind of quickly, the entrepreneur story. It's actually, we're coming up on our 10-year birthday of when we lunch, first at Molly Stone's. Don't ask why I'm in the liquor aisle trying to sell things. I should realize there would be more traffic there. I left Hal Riney and Tattoo, and quickly I was showing the grocery stores. We didn't have marketing support, so I told him I'd do a demo, which is a form of marketing support, but it was really just to do consumer research. People would run into me in the grocery store and be like, what happened? Why are you out doing demos? So we really went out there to kind of prove the business from the ground up. And so the way we talk about this idea of branding from the inside out, we don't have a single brand attribute, we have a brand philosophy, and we have a point of view. And I think a great way to think about this is the transformation that Walmart has gone through. When Sam launched Walmart, it had this big philosophy of helping people live better. And ultimately, when they went to mass advertising, it got dumbed down to that singular promise of low prices, the promise of always. And more recently, they've kind of gone back to that original, I think, marketing agency, help them resurrect that original point of view. And that higher mission makes them feel better about the work they do, it makes their customers feel better, and I think it's a big piece that also the press has gotten behind the brand. And so everything we do at Method is not about a singular brand promise, it's really about a singular cultural idea. And to your point of no social mission, no social media, we believe social missions, of course, feed social media, and Axe is a great example. You could argue it's not exactly a noble cause of helping boys get laid, other than maybe repopulating the planet. And I've always told, I believe any company has the opportunity to have a social mission in it, regardless of what they do. It's just a matter of kind of finding that and bringing it up to the surface. So to do this, though, everything at Method, we have to rethink kind of how we study branding from the inside out. And we purposely try to blur the lines between who we are and who we serve. So a lot of our competition, and I remember this too in advertising, they would sometimes put me on an account that I would have no passion for. So that way I could, see it more objectively. So at one point I worked on Lane Bryant, which was so the skinny white kid shows up, and the whole idea is it's supposed to force you to be able to, as a planner, see things more as the voice of the consumer. I think that's actually a false idea if you want to lead the consumer. Like, you really have to blur the lines. And so we work really hard to do this. We hire people who are passionate about what we do, and we try to create products at the end of the day that we would want to use, and therefore hopefully translate to our guests. And we refer to this to as inside-out branding. To do this really well, it starts with culture. This is our lobby in San Francisco, and we designed it to be able to do essentially our Monday huddle. So we kick off every Monday morning with an entire company meeting for 30 minutes. A different person steers it. We have these 7-up sessions, so we use that kind of as a standing agenda. There are things like Kick Ass and Fast, Be a Green Giant. But anybody speaks in between those, but just so we actually start it and stop it on time. We've installed this giant screen that comes down now too, so it's easier to share ideas. But everything, starting for the first thing we do, Monday morning, is culture, with this idea of a huddle and a way to share, keep everybody in tune. I've used this argument too that your HR director is really your marketing director because, as you guys know, having clients, like getting the right people on the bus who really intuitively understand the brand makes everything else so much easier. Probably if there's one idea you steal from us, it's this, which is we do a homework assignment for everybody we hire. And it's become, actually, it's helped us a lot now because we talk so much about it publicly that anybody who comes to interview with us, they know to expect this. And what we do is when we get down to, sometimes it's one client or one candidate we're in love with, sometimes we have 2 or 3 we can't, decide between. So we'll ask them to come back and do our homework assignment. They get 3 questions. One's very strategic to the role, one's very tactical. And the last question is always the same, which is a cultural value. How will you help keep Method weird? And it's a way of prototyping. It's a live audition, and it's been so beneficial because sometimes the best interviewers are the worst employees because they get so much practice at interviewing. And it's really a way to see how they think, how they gel with the culture. And it's become a kind of a rite of passage at Method, but it also prevents window shoppers. So nobody bothers to show up to interview to see if they can get a higher salary where they are, knowing that our process actually has some speed bumps along the way. And then once we do get you in the door, we have a whole onboarding thing we do of trying to kind of baptize you into our culture. We're big believers that you should choose your own title. Most titles are about your jurisdiction. Here's your box, here's you stay in. And everybody at Method gets to create their own culture. And this is the name generator on their onboarding book, just to kind of give them some ideas. So if you want your title to end in jockey, you have that option. We also give them a lotto ticket because some people actually are lucky and not good. And so we figure if they scratch away and win $1 million, wow, they were lucky and they actually weren't that good. And if they're good, they have to stay back and work like the rest of us. Just also little ways to make them realize they're not at a standard CPG company. Everybody's photos go on the wall just because the whole idea of like you're part of a family. We also encourage everybody to do brown bags on a regular basis and teach people. So this was a program that our Green Chefs put together, which was to help everybody be an expert in sustainability and collect little badges along the way. So we really think of ourselves as a learning organization. We spend a lot of time kind of teaching each other skills. There's our creatives do art school twice a year. And they teach people how to draw like really basic art skills. And it's really powerful when you watch MBAs be judged on their fragile little creative ideas, and it helps them quickly understand what it's like to be in that role. This is kind of the point of, we train everybody on design. So the whole idea of like bringing opposing ideas together, standing out through simplicity. And we bring this to life we have our obsession cards, and we forgot to bring them with us. Every year we update them, and we roll them out at our opening offsite for the year, which we just did, which helps everybody remind them of our mission, our obsession, which are our competitive advantage, and our values. So we put a lot of effort into keeping everybody on the same page of what makes us unique and different. And this is really important because going back to this idea that we live in complete media transparency and social media, like everybody's a creative now. So if anybody tweets at Method, like they're essentially a copywriter. And a lot of companies try to control that moment, and get the lawyers involved and what you can say and what you can't say. We give everybody complete freedom. We don't try to control what they do. We just try to control who we hire, and we try to control what we've trained them on. If you get those two things right, this idea of branding from the inside out, you have complete trust that anybody inside the company who's going to talk about Method is going to say the right things. And it's this kind of transformation to that command and control. Those, when you had a couple bubbles, marketing was top down, and today we believe marketing is bottom up. Some of our best ideas have come from what somebody might have pasted on. Put up on Facebook, and then that triggered an idea that we can then ladder up to something bigger. This is kind of one example of it. You guys know Parking Day? Mm-hmm. So like I'd never heard of it a few years ago. Nobody asked for permission. There's a a slush fund you can just get money for. Came in one evening and there was like all these shrubs and everything being staged like in our office. And the next morning they went out, set up for Parking Day. And suddenly, the local news shows up. They're interviewing them, and you've got people from your company like they're on camera. Like that's such a great thing if you actually trust those people and you trust what they're going to say. So we give people complete permission to express the brand in any way possible. And when you get this really right, it becomes authentic. All these little moments come up that as a marketer are just like gems of the story. We now ship about 40% of all of our product via biodiesel, so we have veggie trucks essentially. And our operations team just went out and did this, didn't ask for permission. And suddenly as a marketer, like you got this great story of these biodiesel trucks that are rolling around the country. And it goes back to this whole point that like it starts with the people and really putting a lot of effort and focus on the people. Every event we do, I can actually argue that costumes are very strategic. So we have 3 offices, Chicago, London, and San Francisco. Everybody gets together like twice a year in the same room. So this was during our dry kind of work sessions. We always have a theme, and this one was Heroes and Villains, which was the theme of the prom that night. All of our company parties are dress-up parties. And luckily we did it from the beginning where it doesn't feel like forced family fun time. Like it's just, everybody like just knows we're gonna do it and tries to outdo each other. So our summer party is always the prom. And it's a great way to bond people, especially for these people like from the London office, the Chicago office. They're going to see each other twice a year. And when you're in costume, you just tend to gel and socialize better. It's my theory of why, like, when you're single, you hook up more on Halloween than any other time of the year. Which would be a good opportunity for acts, like to sponsor that. But when you're dressing an idiot, you go up to other people dressed like an idiot, and conversation just flows. So we continually try to nurture this within the organization. Luckily, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. We got rid of our receptionist about a year ago, and so today was actually Cheese Appreciation Day, so there was a whole thing of cheeses at the front. And we had a major retailer who was in this morning, and it was great we could offer them cheese for their flight home. So we started this thing where like every day, we just kind of stole this from Zappos, where they have 2 receptionists. So every day, a different person at Method, myself included, has to be the receptionist. And then we didn't tell them to do this, they started dressing up and doing different things. So this was Jersey Shore Day, where they made everybody do a shot of Jaeger as they came in. So everybody tries to outdo each other. But again, it's just a way to continue to kind of build stories. And then of course the people running, you'll see all this shows up on right now on our landing page. We had targeted a couple weeks ago. We dressed up as furry animals and surprised them and forced them into a ping pong match to play for distribution. Double face them if we won. But it makes for just great little stories that can be pushed out there into our social media. And the whole point is like, and I'm sure for you guys it's easy to do, but it's hard to get your clients to do. You just have to have complete trust to thrive in this transparent era. And that's why it's like so hard for these companies who are out here on this bubble to kind of go all the way from complete transparency, and they have companies that are not structured to do that. So we're very fortunate we got to start from day one. And you get those things right, then marketing is nothing more than just creating a conversation. I love this example of when Bruno came out. You guys probably know the story that it was the first movie to suffer to decline from that opening day on Friday to Saturday. We all know what happens. It was a crappy movie, so everybody walked out and they tweeted, Facebook, and posted it, text their friends to say it's a crappy movie, don't go see it. And there was an article, I think this was an ad age I pulled from, where the movie industry was saying, how are we going to manage the Twitter effect? Well, it's pretty easy, just create better products, right? Like the product is crap for most movies. And so I think similar to Apple at Method, everything starts with the product. And it's about getting the product right. And so we really think of this as our version of marketing. And so we have this phrase called cutting steel. And what most companies do is they'll create what's called a stock container. So this is probably custom, but for the most part, most 90% of packaged goods out there comes in a stock bottle. And the reason for that is it can be expensive to create a custom bottle. So take this, for example. To build this mold, it starts off about $100,000 to $200,000, which is, you can build a house in most parts of America for that. So it's a lot of money. But most companies look at that in isolation from their marketing budget. And we try to look at it as our marketing budget. So you can think about what $100 buys you in media. It's not much. It's not even a national FSI. So we look at it as like, well, cutting steel is nothing more than media. And suddenly that's a really cheap use of media, putting that in product versus trying to put that in marketing. And then when you do put it in marketing, it makes the marketing so much easier. This was a refill we did for Costco. Most companies would put no thought actually into a refill. And we not only custom molded, designed it, but then we tried to get it out there as marketing. So we had Danny CEO create like examples of what you can do with it afterwards. And then I just went on Flickr one day after we launched it, like it started showing up of like people bought it at Costco. Most of them would admit it, like I only bought it because the bottle was so cool. And then took photos of it, and it was just a great example of how you can take like the lowliest consumer packaged goods item, a hand wash refill, and turn it into media through the packaging. The other reason this is really important is because it used to be when you launched a product, you really worried about a couple of key editors, like maybe Consumer Reports, a couple major magazines, and most editors, when you send them a product, they're too busy to actually use it and write about it. But today, everybody's an editor. So that housewife in Kansas, her review can be just as important as what the New York Times could say about our product. And so it's great when you get it right, like our wood floor cleaner, which I do highly recommend. It's a fantastic product. But it's not so great when you get a 1-star here. And this is from 2003, so it's still up there. And it's probably going to be up for another 10 years. We haven't made this product in like 6 years, but that review, there really is such a thing as your permanent record now. And so it just puts so much more pressure today to get products right and put more effort on the product versus the marketing. Just kind of a funny little side story here. When we were trying to get a target, we initially pitched them through the traditional buying path, and this is what they said to us was snowball's chance in hell. And so we used pretty much every last dollar and hired Karen Rashid to design a line of products, used that to get an audience with the marketing, who then invited a group of buyers who were pretty angry at us for going over their head. So this essentially was the entrepreneur equivalent of a Hail Mary pass. But we had to use great product just as our way to get in to Target, which, no coincidence, or it looks like a sex toy, which got Target to agree that that was, I got some better stories that I can't say. So this was our original end cap that went in Target, went in as a 90-day test, and we thought being smart merchants, we put this on the top shelf. And the fragrances back in 2002 were really unique, like the idea of a cucumber kitchen, or a cucumber dish soap was really novel, so people wanted to smell it. But they didn't quite get that there was this little cap you removed and that it would dispense upside down, and so they removed the entire over cap. And of course it wasn't designed to go off, so it wasn't really designed to easily go back on. And we had 30 days to pass this test, and we go from store to store in the Chicagoland and Northern California and just find this entire thing dripped in dish soap. So we spent, I think, more time buying it. We were very fortunate we got past this test. Another story, too, for us that it's really important is laundry detergent. We launched the first 3X laundry detergent, and ultimately it got copied by the whole industry, so we had to find a way back into it, which was this product. And I'm just going to show, this for us, coming out of the recession was like a really important product as far as trying to go in and disrupt laundry again. And so when it launched, our we call it brand managers pod directors. And our pod director put together this little internal video to celebrate it. It was to be, they made it play at the Monday huddle. So I'm just going to play it for you here. It's a little quirky because it was meant as there's some inside jokes. But instead of talking about our culture and our product development process, like it just kind of brings it to life. We launched 3X Laundry, and it was quite a success in its initial launch. The category copied it, so we really needed to find a way to go in and disrupt the category again and do it differently.
The core innovation of the method laundry detergent is the formula, which is built in an entirely new way. It allows us to condense the formula down to a super concentrate.
One of the big problems with laundry is people tend to overdose very regularly, so we wanted to give people a measured dose that they could use.
Say you got a small load, 2 squirts. Say you got a normal load, 4 squirts. And say your nickname is Skid Marks.
Right after happy hour, and Eric came by up to my desk and said, "Hey Michelle, come to the wall on the 2nd floor, and Josh and I want to show you something." And they had some renderings that Josh had done. I remember kind of being wowed.
It's like one of our IT guys who teaches salsa on Thursdays.
Out there, exactly what we needed to find.
The idea is that it's handy. It's something that gets us away from the old-fashioned take a big jug and pour it and then pour some back and then spill it all over.
What jugs are equal? What again?
One of the ways we got people behind the idea of Lighthouse was to make lots of prototypes and actually get it to people's hands and try it. And what we found was that the moment some people had used the product, they didn't want to give it back.
As the product idea started to come together in terms of the packaging shape and the formula, we realized that our next challenge was going to be creatively how to shout on shelf, bye-bye jug, hello method laundry.
It was amazing, actually. It was tough. It was also amazing to watch the project team collaborate. This was a product that we couldn't work in our silos. It was a total collaborative process where everyone was having to real-time share information with each other and build a better product as a result.
Things like concentrating the formula, taking water out of it, moving to a pump, all these things, they weren't in the goals, but they kind of led us down a path that led us to a really strong product in the end.
Method is a really unique place. It's not an organization. It's a lot more like an organism. It grows, it adapts, it evolves, and it constantly challenges itself to come up with newer and better things.
I think Lighthouse is an expression of us at our best. So we started with a big, bold idea that we had no research, no proof, no facts to say this was the right direction to go, but we had a core belief and a core vision.
The biggest impact that Method Laundry has had on me, and I hope that it has on the future of Method, is this return to believing and return to what our mission is all about. Creating revolutionary products for people that will help them create a happy, healthy home.
And now what's happened is our buyers are telling us that
It just gets a little sappy from here. One thing you see there too is like what's very different about Method is most companies in our space, they They own their own plants, and we outsource all of that, but we insource all the intellectual capital. So literally everything in that product has been done in-house, from the industrial design, the graphic design, formulation, the fragrance, every single piece of it. And it makes it a really fun place to work because you suddenly have every discipline there able to work as teams. We refer to this a lot as like the soul can't be outsourced. At Method 2, we give creative, incredible leadership. The bald Kiwi guy, he's our head of industrial design. He's more, we call him product innovation. But he's a industrial designer. Our graphic designers, like they have really, really strong voices in the company. And we're big believers of putting creatives in charge of the brand. So our head of marketing actually is a former, came from a purely creative background. We call it brand experience, and underneath him we have advocacy, interactive, PR, every single touch point. We work with external agencies like Drugify to help us like high concept, and but from there we try to take everything we can ourselves and bring it. And it's the only way I see the model working of like being in this media transparent kind of reactionary world is if we had to write a brief every time something interesting happened, by the time we would get there, it would be too late. But it's not an easy environment to build. So we kind of sum it up this way, like IDEO does a great job of talking about the difference between design thinking and business thinking. So on our leadership team, we have 2 people from pure creative backgrounds who sit there as peers to our Vice President of Operations, our CFO, and it really makes for a very, very rich dialogue. Nobody ever questions the role of design or creativity. They know it has a seat at the table, and very much in our DNA, they understand the value of it. We also like to, every once in a while, insource people. Do you guys know Innocent Juice? It's kind of like the Adwala of Europe. Coca-Cola just recently acquired them. And they started at the same time we did. Their backgrounds of the founders were all the same age, same backgrounds. One came from advertising. And we call them our sister company. It's like kind of eerie when we go visit them. And so when they're in town, we're in town, we always visit each other. And so Dan Germain is their creative director, who's been there from the beginning and really the guy who created the voice. This company, I've never seen another brand leverage copy and voice better than they do. So we had Dan come as our exchange student and basically spent a week working at Method, and then we sent one of our designers over there to work for a week. And in that week, we not only gave him real work to do, but he also then taught class, the entire company, several times throughout the week on how to write great copy. So we had even our finance people learning, actually their emails started getting better because they started writing in the Method voice. Everything we do is out in the open, so we call them wiki walls, which is just a fancy way of saying whiteboard. Every conference room, like most companies, is floor-to-ceiling magnetic whiteboards, but we actually put them all through the hallways too, so like you can actually have a brainstorm on your way to the bathroom if you run into somebody. We train the entire organization that if you're going to have work out in the open in a very fragile, early state, they got to know how to build on it. So this is out of our onboarding manual where we talk about that simple little technique of when you see a new idea, don't scan your brain and go, yes, that's a good idea, but here's why it's wrong. It's that little thing of like, yes, it's a good idea, and here's how to make it better. So we really try to create a very collaborative environment. The way we take structure, I know it's like such a boring slide, but it's trying to make a big point on it if I do this successfully. The way we've tried to balance earned and paid media is, this is what our marketing plan looks like. So we're actually going to spend more this year on paid media than ever before in the form of an advertising campaign. We find we still have to do it, we need to drive awareness, we don't have a better way to do it, a faster, better way to do it that's predictable. Our retailers, unfortunately, they love when you come in and show them an ad campaign still, like, okay, you guys are real. And then what we've started doing is these things called flares, and it's our way to create specific content that can be leveraged through every earned touch point. So Flare is nothing more than content that PR can leverage, that Interactive can leverage, social media. And so what we're trying to do, we actually unfortunately just took our budget down this year, but we were trying to do 1 a quarter. I think we're going to do 3 this year. And so the first one we're doing is with Virgin America. Our hand wash is in the bathroom. And so we're going to create a video that is going to air between the safety video and takeoff, but it's not going to be an ad, it's going to be a really fun, engaging video. And then from there we're going to build out all the different ways to leverage it. And so we've been trying to do this as a way to continue to experiment and do things that we hope, we call it flares because sometimes it's going to light up the sky, other times it may blow up in our hand. But by firing one off every quarter, hopefully we have a portfolio of work that's effective. And so this a couple examples of flares we've done, and everything we try to do, you'll see we're inviting people to participate. So these were detox stores that they're pop-up shops we did in a couple major markets. And the whole idea of the store was you bring us your toxic cleaning products, we'll turn them in for non-toxic, so kind of gun amnesty. And then in the back room, we'd run advocacy. We did events and throughout the time that the store would be open. It's also really fun having a store because you learn so much. Like everybody wanted to work in the stores because it's like this consumer lab. You can really get intimate with how people think about it. We did Pop Shop. We did a pop-up truck in New York this year, this summer, and it's awesome because all the media is free, and it just is another reminder why you need to spend more on great creative ideas and why we've invested it in-house. So my favorite example from last year, we did this really quickly. Have you guys seen this that we did? So Chris Porter came up with it when we first launched. We have this iconic shot of our surface cleaners with a daisy in it. And the whole point around it was the fact that our products are so safe, a flower can grow in it. And when Clorox launched their Greenworks campaign, they made the trademark the daisy. And then one day I got in the mail a cease and desist letter for using the daisy. I'm like, this is genius. We knew we were in the right because we've been using it forever. And so within days, we took the cease and desist letter and we quickly shot this video and we threw it up. And it created a nice little stir, so I was going to share with you here.
Hey guys, it's Eric.
And Adam.
We're Method's founders of People Against Dirty. We're here today in San Francisco with our friends, the Daisies.
This Earth Day, we need your help to save the daisy. That's right, that iconic symbol of purity, innocence, and peace. Sadly, a major corporation is claiming that they own the rights to it.
Oh, the daisy? That's ridiculous. Did they invent the daisy? Did they design the daisy? It's like trying to own the rights to the cucumber or the question mark.
No, seriously. They sent us the cease and desist letter saying that they own the daisy and that we have to stop using it.
So essentially saying, don't touch the daisies.
Even though we started using the image of the daisy about 6 years ago just to show how safe our products were because we don't test on animals.
So we just figured we'd test on our little flower friends instead.
And we never tried to own it.
No, because it belongs to Mother Earth. And since daisies can't talk, yet, we asked one of our scientists. Fred said,
well, the results are in. While a daisy will last 3 days in Method All-Surface Cleaner, nothing takes care of daisies better than Mother Nature.
So, since we don't have a lot of money for lawyers or parking spots, we just figured we'd ask you, the public, to decide who should the daisies belong to. Method, Clorox, or Mother Earth.
And while we'd be honored if you voted for Method, we urge you to vote your conscience.
We believe flowers belong to the planet and not corporations.
So it was a really fun thing to do also because we had all these lawyers calling us, offering us free advice. They're like, well, you guys gotta get a lawyer. I got a friend here who will help you out. Like, you would not imagine how many lawyers we had to look at this to get before putting it out there. But also all of these, because we had the whole cease and desist, so it was kind of like crowdsourcing our legal. So all of these people downloaded the cease and desist, lawyers, read it, and then sided with us in it too. So we knew there was no way for us to come back because you could go online and see thousands of lawyers for free who said we were the right of the cease and desist. We're also hoping, in the future people will think twice about coming after us, knowing that we're crazy enough to put anything on anything said. I was really hoping they were going to reply back. And if they did, we were going to say, fine, if you want to fight about it, meet us at Treasure Island at 3 o'clock. Tug of war, whoever wins the tug of war gets the daisy, and then we're going to have all of our skinniest people show up and hopefully get some press. So last thing I'll leave you with, Nate Pence, who used to be our creative director, is now head of creative over at Bare Essentials. He always had this great line when we work with agencies that I thought was really great, which is we always explain to agencies, your job is not, to give us communication ideas. Your job is to help us create cultural ideas. And whether it's something that goes in our elevator or something that goes in an ad, everything needs to be, helping us build part of our culture. And if we build that culture right, then it's ultimately going to lead to a really great marketing story. And with that, I I actually got to speak in Cleveland recently. I've always said thank you, Cleveland. I finally got to actually use it. People always ask me afterwards where I'm from Cleveland, which I'm not. But with that, I'd love to dive into anything that you guys would like to chat about.
Cool, thanks. I got some questions. It feels like culturally you guys do a great job of putting who you are first and what you're passionate about first. And for some reason I've always held on to this idea of the people against dirty. It feels like it's a call to arms. It feels like it puts the David and Goliath in perspective. It does all those things, but it feels like an afterthought when you start talking about your company. I mean, do you guys live that belief at all, or does it come into play, or is it an advertising idea?
No, it's actually much more of an internal. We go back and forth on it. We don't use it external. We use it way more internally than we use externally. And part of that is just some of the marketing challenges we have right now, helping people understand who we are and what we stand for. We still do use it externally, but it's really like the way we refer to ourselves, our employee base, is people against dirty. And it's like the second you walk into our offices, there's our huge people against dirty manifesto. And so it just, like, you know, when people send out email, like group emails, it's usually always addressed PAT, meaning people against dirty. So it's just, you know, even when we interview, we ask, like, why do you want to be a person against dirty? And it's very much ingrained in our culture, the way we think about ourselves internally, and we refer to our advocates as that.
Yeah, and dirty is really more specifically about poison, not necessarily about messy or...
Exactly. And it's a great definition, because it goes from everything of, like, yeah, like, will this work on the dirt, to dirty chemicals, dirty business practices. We use it, like, it makes for a lot of great jokes too in the office.
Totally. Well, when we talk about the cause marketing, a lot of times, and your flares are interesting, because a lot of times it's where do we want to go with this? Where do you know, on a mission, you're not in isolation, you're in it together. So where do we want to go with this? And certainly you've got a business mandate to take it someplace that is you know, growing. Otherwise, you're probably not not moving forward, right?
Exactly. It's we try to always get this balance right. I think lately we've been a little too focused on the business versus the mission, as far as the way we've been talking internally. We realized the other day, we're like, okay, we gotta get back to preaching a bit more on the mission and keep those things in balance. You know, half the employee base is there because they're really driven by the business, and half are there because they're driven purely by the mission. And really continue to get those things in balance. It's not easy to do, but we try to work at it as much as possible.
Yeah, and the other thing is, as a challenger brand, as the company that came in with 7 Goliaths, I mean, you could reframe them all. By being who you are, you could reframe them, you could change your practices, you could change the bottle, you can change your approach, you can do all those things. Fortunately, culture provided you some opportunity to do that as well. You've got all those opportunities to do it. What about the brands who say, but my product isn't sexy, my category isn't sexy, we've been doing this for 50 to 60 years, what do you mean change it from the inside out? I mean, those are all in many cases realities, not even just, you know, perceptions, they're realities within businesses.
Which is one reason some businesses need to die. So new businesses can be born. I mean, there is, you know, you can see the life cycle at work of why, you know, businesses usually exist over a certain period of time and then ultimately fade away, because they can't change. And the change outside is happening faster than the change inside. Well, ultimately, you know, the end is near for a business. So I agree. I think a lot of businesses, if you like, I love the model when you look at sports and how, you know, with each shift in the mass media, the sporting world changed. So, you know, baseball was the perfect sport for the medium of radio. It's still, like, listening to a baseball game I think on the radio is better than television. But when television came along, like, football's way better. So, like, the new shift, it'd be interesting to see if that changes the world of sports. And I think the same is true with brands. Like, brands live and die among media shifts. And some will make it and some won't make it. And in the last, 10 years, like, everything from Zappos to Facebook, the number of, like, Google brands that have been born on this new shift, it'll be interesting to see how many equally die on that shift and can't make it. A lot will, but a lot won't.
With our theme of cause marketing, other than the Daisy, have you guys done any other kind of programs that follow almost like, think about the Obama campaign, or a real cause marketing sort of approach? We went from here to here to here together.
So I mean, our original campaign of People Gets Dirty very much had that spirit. Our last campaign, which I showed that video down below earlier when I talked about it, our advertising campaign that we ran this year was for a drug-free America, kind of a this spoof off of drug-free America. So it was the laundry that basically was Tide as the jug, and we were painting Tide as a drug dealer. And so the entire campaign was don't do drugs, don't let your friends do drugs, and it was very that it had that cause feel to it. So we try to bake that spirit, the whole detox your home. We always try to bake that spirit into it. That campaign that's launching in a few weeks is going to be just open letters. And so each letter, the campaign, is nothing more than a letter to a different person that everybody else gets to listen into. So like one of the first ones is, Dear Moms with a Chemical Dependency. Going after moms who use toxic chemicals in the home, but in a very polite, polite, charming way, hopefully. I'm always amazed at the letters we get. We used the word freakin' in our last campaign, and it showed up on Jay Leno under headlines because he thought that word. But we got so much hate mail for using the word freakin', like buried, in the middle of a paragraph copy. So yeah, I'm always amazed what people will complain about. But we're constantly trying to bake that spirit into everything we say and do.
I have a couple of questions. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, what did Target think about the Tide silhouette in their ad? I mean, clearly they let it pass. Is that an issue?
Well, that first campaign that I showed when we launched 3X, we actually got Target to pay for that. That was their advertising dollars. So they didn't have an issue with it. It was originally an orange bottle, then it got turned into an outline. But the last campaign we ran with ours is, it's our advertising, so we can do whatever we want. And it's just such an effective foil because our laundry detergent is so radically different that we kind of need to show, go through the door of the new category to the old category, make that comparison.
But they never issue any warning or anything like that?
No. No, we always share with retailers what we're doing, and they like the fact we push the edge, and usually don't comment on it one way or the other.
From a product innovation standpoint, you have pretty much kind of like flat creative environment. How do you handle what I would imagine to be an influx of product innovation ideas? I mean, does it go through your kind of like, open door policy, everybody bring it, and then you know what, the business opportunities prove that idea does not work or whatever. I mean, how do you vet an influx of?
We're going through that right now for spring 2012. So what we do is we call it living in a state of make, and we're just constantly prototyping, churning out ideas, and they just start populating walls. And then 1 year out, what we do is we start to myself and our head of product development and Josh, the three of us sit down and draw up a straw man of what we think from a very high level makes the most sense of a product pipeline for that 12-month out period. And we're doing it at the moment. We got a couple technologies that are really promising, but yet we're not sure if we can commercialize it. We're kind of on the edge of it. We won't know for a little bit longer. But we kind of draw that out, and then we have our pod directors who are the business owners. We then sit down with them. They help us fine tune it, and then in 2 weeks we have a standing product council meeting every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and it's slated for 2 weeks. We'll share that first draft with it, and so it kind of starts from a high level, focus it down, and then now we'll get focused a bit more in the coming weeks. But we're very formal once we've agreed, this is the pipeline, this is what we're doing. But it's usually not, there's some debate around it, but usually the good ideas naturally rise up pretty fast. We also brought consumer insight in-house, so we constantly pump auditions. So if something's on the fence, we always get into auditions quickly to kind of get a sense if there's something there. And then we have something called the beta test, which is a fancy way of saying test market. But we do it with just one retailer, and it's a tool. So if people are feeling really passionate about something and others aren't, we'll say, beta test it. And we actually, part of the company scorecard is we have to do 2 a year to make sure that people actually go and they use it. So we're doing a collaboration with Disney that went back and forth on whether we should do it or not. So we're going to launch it, limited number of retailers. If it does great, cool, we'll scale it up. If it does bad, it's easy to kill.
And the final really quick question, your culture and your identity is all around, dirty and everything, but and so is the advertising, but the product itself, not that I can recollect, doesn't really promote it on pack as priority. So why?
2 reasons. One is that we can't afford to carry dual inventory in North America for the US and Canada, which means we have to put French on almost everything, which eats up a lot of space. We used to have a lot more fun copy on it. 2, like our bottle shapes don't give us a lot of real estate without mucking it up pretty fast. But our entire spray cleaning line gets relaunched in about a month, and actually just saw the first production as I was leaving this afternoon. And our new bottle, it's a 4-sided bottle, and we did 3 labels on it. And so each of the sides, we have 1 label completely dedicated to just bringing more personality and fun and more about the fight against dirty on it. But we've been trying to do more and more. It's just tough to do on our bottles, especially with 2 languages and keeping it simple.
Do you find not even the marketing standpoint, but the chemical composition to be a differentiator really in the market? And is that an asset for you? Like saying all natural or something. We struggle with that type of language to some of our products.
Yeah, like that laundry detergent, we refer to as concentrated, but it's not. It's such a, we found a way to put the water inside the cleaning molecules, where usually they're floating around. So what happened with that detergent is it was so effective that you actually only need a little amount, but it's easier shorthand to say concentrated. So we have some formulas that are in our new cleaning line too. The technology is great, but it's hard to explain. The hardest thing is explaining that technology to the consumer. Our hand wash, there's nothing radically different about it other than that it smells great and it's naturally derived. So it varies on the product category, but we find it's really hard to tell. If you guys know how to do it, we're all ears. Tell these really kind of rich formulation stories in ways that resonate and are meaningful enough.
I think that's what your proposals are about.
Say again?
I think that's what the proposals are about versus the flares. Right?
Exactly.
People try to do too much with the flares or with their overall campaigns, and not enough with the more stratified storytelling.
And try to work every touch point too.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing with things in house. Like everything is media, right? So you just look for every little touch point to try to tell that story. And with our brand managers, it's the biggest challenge of don't try to tell the whole story in one space. It's, tell a little there, a little there, a little there. And then hopefully the collective whole as a brand builds, people will understand who we are and what we're about.
Just hearing all the different parts, it's been hard for me to formulate this question actually, but hearing through the presentation, there's so much in your culture, your culture and your mission and your belief system are so wired in, and because you come from a marketing background, it's really fundamentally strong, right? Like you have insights, you call them auditions, you do different things, but they do functions, right? So it doesn't sound like your company could ever be the kind I'm Problems of Maine, and I made it, and when I finally sold it, or Burt's, I'm Burt's, and when I finally sold it, they fucked me over really good, and I got pissed off and I left, you know what I mean? Which is the classic, right? It goes up, and then somehow you jump to that next quantum level and you get screwed, and you can't do it.
Yep.
Do you find, given the fact that you've got it, and you are inside out, are you finding that keeping that spirit up is actually getting harder? Like you mentioned, you've got high projections now. You have things you have to live up to now that you're on the bigger stage. Are you finding it harder and harder? Or are you finding that you just have to kind of deploy your sneakiness in different places?
It's a really, really great question. We have a book coming out by Penguin this summer that we're desperately trying to finish writing. And so it's actually been a really great exercise to kind of wrestle, to stop and think about these things and the evolution of the company over the last 10 years. I would argue definitely it's harder. Part of it too is we were just younger then. It's we didn't have families to rush home to at 5 o'clock, and we all hung out. We started off in a little office in Union Street, and we worked and played 24 hours, and the whole company was really young, and there was now we have a party, and there's kids everywhere. So we have responsibilities outside. So that that wears on the culture a little as far as kind of blurring those personal and professional lives. As far as how, there's 2 things of the way I think about culture. One is, do we have a culture that actually enhances my life because I enjoy the people I'm with every day, who I see more than my family? and that I just find exciting, you know, a culture that just finds work to be less work and really enjoyable. And I would think for that one, we're just continuing, it's a great place, like we're all excited to see each other every day. And that goes back to hiring, you know, like don't hire anybody, I always tell people, don't hire anybody you're not psyched to sit next to on a plane for 5 hours. The second one is, does the culture... Have I wrapped up music? Does the culture actually enhance people to do better work? And I think that one too, like again, it's methods in a place that our work is getting better and better. So it's still there. It's getting harder. It's a hard question to answer, but it does get harder to do it. There's more work in it.
I don't even mean just supporting your internal structure now, business-wise out there. You know what I mean? You know, you start to get where you're kind of speaking a semi-different language with other people, and you know what I mean? And they, you know, hey, come see our receptionist. It's really funny. You'll get a shot. But you know what I mean? Do you find it hard to, you know, get them synced up with you when you're away from that core? To get them to capture the spirit.
Yeah, it's got its own momentum. Like if I didn't show up at work tomorrow or ever again, like you're at, like the place really has its own momentum. It drives me when I drive in, like as founders, and I think that's the